new series in Madden 16. Now, I said the poll in the previous video would not be the end-all be-all, but all of the comments were in favor of the Redskins, and that was the team I decided to end up going with for this franchise. So thank you for the few of you that did vote. And I was thinking the Raiders toward the end. I was like, because I wasn't going to let the poll solely be determining what my team was, but I said, you know, a lot of people want to see the Redskins, and I don't mind doing the Redskins. They got a few pieces in place, and it would really be a lot of different, like, building of things that I'd be more interested in building, because the things I don't really like doing are the running back, quarterback, and really wide receiver. And the Redskins currently have a lot of those things that I wouldn't need to build that from, so I could build like offensive line and a lot of my defense. So I decided ultimately that it was what people wanted and it would be a fun thing to do. So here we are. Washington Redskins is going to be the team that we pick for our franchise. And right now on your screen, you're going to be seeing me going through the league settings. If you want to pause to see anything that I did, feel free to do so. I'm just speeding this up to the fastest point possible because it was a very slow clip, and it's not very important, honestly, for a lot of these things. Just so you see my settings to start with anyway, my time settings and my Excel clock and stuff like that, my difficulty. I'm using charter sliders for anyone wondering, by the way. Here you get an opportunity to see how ravaged with injury our team is, as a starting outside linebacker, cornerback, and safety are all on the injured reserve. Very hard injury luck when it comes to this team, at least for the first season anyway. Now, one of the things I like to do when I first start a franchise is look at salaries for our team, any team, and see what the worst contracts on the team are and what are disposable assets. Now, the Redskins have a lot of very skilled defensive linemen, a very deep defensive line, so I decided that a couple of them were very expendable in Jason Hatcher and Stephen Paella, especially considering the contracts that they were being paid. So we traded Jason Hatcher to Chicago for a third-round pick, first of all, and then we decided to trade Stephen Paella not to the Bears, but to the New Orleans Saints for another third-round pick. So that gives us 3 third-round picks in addition to our own first and second-round picks. We would have our pick, New Orleans pick, and Chicago's pick in the third round of the upcoming draft, which gives us a big opportunity with the upcoming draft. That's really what I'm focusing on, is this first draft. That's the first year. It's always important with a rebuilding team. And the other thing I like to do during week 1 of any season, any year in this franchise, is look at what contracts are coming up for renewal. And here there were 2 major ones that I wanted to get done, as well as Keenan Robinson I signed to an extra year as well. But I wanted to sign Kirk Cousins to a 3-year deal. For the next 3 years, he'll be making around $15 million. And I also signed Alfred Morris. Now, Alfred Morris, I was really debating on what kind of term to give him, and I believe I decided on 2 years by the time it was all said and done, for about $2.5 million a year, which is a very fair price for a starting running back. But that gives us enough time to see if we want him to be our, and it brings him up to 28, so we would still get a couple years out of him if we really wanted to, but we would see if he could really be a reliant back by then, and if not, the cutting price is very easy, and Matt Jones will be in the last year of his deal when Alfred Morris's comes off the books. So if Matt Jones does turn out to be a starting caliber running back for our team, then it's a very, very manageable situation with the contract for Alfred Morris. So I thought these were very good deals. I gave Keenan Robinson a year and $2.5 million because I didn't want to be completely screwed if I didn't wind up getting another linebacker in the upcoming draft. I wanted to have some sort of starting linebacker, middle linebacker that is. And looking on the trade block, I found a very good deal for Trey Boston, a safety from Carolina who will play strong safety for us opposite D'Angelo Hall for this year anyway. Deshaun Goldson and a 5th round pick heading to Carolina the other way for Trey Boston. Gets Deshaun Goldson's contract off the books too. And we actually finished the season better than I thought the first season. We finished 7-9, which was 3rd in the division, but still I expected this to be about a 4 or 5 win team, not a 7-win team. Now here, I'm going to let the music play for a minute while you look at some of the season stats for this season for some of our players, including Kirk Cousins had a really good year, and Alfred Morris had a very solid year, and a couple of defenders who will surprise you with the years that they had. But I'm going to let the music run, and you can look at these. I'll let them play at full speed. I'm not going to slow them down or anything, but I am going to meet you at the next part of this video. So now here we are at the re-sign stage. The players who are not extension eligible that I wanted back, there weren't a lot. It was Dustin Hopkins and Terrence Knighton you're going to see are the ones that I re-signed. I tried to re-sign a couple other people like Brian De La Puente, and a couple of other guys I kind of lowballed offers to, like Colt McCoy, thinking, you know, if they don't take it, I'm not losing anything. I don't really need these guys back. But my main guys that I really wanted were Terrence Knighton, who's one of my favorite defensive linemen, and he didn't want a big commitment or a term. And I wanted to get back Dustin Hopkins because he's a very solid kicker, and I've really gotten him. I've gotten him in a lot of my Madden franchises over the years. So I didn't want back Junior Gillette or any of them because they were going to run a little bit too much, and I wanted to have enough money in free agency to make other upgrades. And I tried to get Will Blackman back, but as a like 5th or 4th corner, but he did not want a money. I was going to give him a deal without any guaranteed money in case that I was able to get a cheaper option somewhere else. But still, I was very satisfied with the people that we did re-sign. We got very good deals on both Hopkins and Terrence Knighton, I thought anyway. Before free agency began, I wanted to make sure that I had as much possible cap space free in my favor, and I decided to release a few veterans that we didn't really need on our team, like D'Angelo Hall and Andre Roberts and other players such as that, to get the additional cap relief to give me a few extra $1 million to play with for my depth free agents. I didn't plan to use free agency in a really big way. I just kind of wanted to fill out some holes and possible starters who would be depth if not starting themselves. And my first target was actually a player who played for us last year, Brian De La Puente, who was a center for us last year, our starting center. And I don't actually know after the draft if he's going to be our starting center, if we'll get someone better, possibly a guard who can move over to center. But for now, we're going to sign him just in case we don't get him on a 2-year deal, I believe it is. And my second target was former Miami Dolphins first overall pick, Jake Long, who we were hoping would play right tackle for us. And after not re-signing Dookie Inacho and releasing D'Angelo Hall, we needed a new starting safety, so we pursued former Chiefs safety Hussein Abdullah on a 2-year or 3-year contract for a very, very fair price. And a big problem with our roster as currently constructed was not only the lack of a really good starting cornerback outside of Bashad Breeland, but at depth cornerbacks too. So we went out and got Josh Robinson. Now he's really probably going to be a 4th or 5th cornerback because I plan to draft one, and also Chris Culver is coming back off injury, so we can possibly make him the nickel corner. If not, Josh Robinson would be our nickel corner. So he's really versatile in what we can do with him as far as our organizational plans. And we also pursued Terrell Brown for the same purpose, a depth corner who could start in a nickel role if necessary. We will move on to address our issues with offensive line depth. Our starters are pretty good now that we have offered Jake Long a contract. We're feeling good about that, and there's always offensive linemen to be drafted. But we needed some lineman depth, as we didn't really have a lot of that last year, and we also released one of our backup guards earlier to save a little bit of money too. So Davin Joseph, a player I liked when he was on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was available, and so after a little bit of a struggle deciding how much to give him, we did end up offering him a 1-year deal for about $1 million. And here I wanted an extra linebacker, as we do run a 3-4. I wanted 2 kind of backup linebackers, so we did pursue Joe Mays on a 2-year deal. And here I wanted a cheap additional backup pass rusher, so we signed legendary Syracuse player Dwight Freeney. And our final free agent move was offering Sharice Wright a contract. This is really kind of insurance for injury purposes, or if we do not end up getting a cornerback in the draft, which is currently my plan, is I wanted a cornerback and a linebacker. But this is kind of an insurance move in case that does not end up happening. And speaking of the draft, it is time to begin the draft now. We are done with the main portion of free agency. I did sign a couple other free agents that didn't show, and there were a few other things that I didn't get, or a few other free agents that I offered contracts that didn't accept them, so I kind of skipped over them. But those were really the main kind of players that we were going after. They're pretty well-known players. So we tried to move up in the draft to get the player that we wanted. We traded a 1st and one of the 3rd-round picks. I believe this 3rd-round pick was the Saints, as well as a 5th-round pick from next year to go to the Bills. I was thinking that the Steelers were going to draft the player that I wanted to get, so I really tried to jump them, and you're going to see in a second, it might not have been 100% worth it, but again, when you need the player, you need the player. We're going to make our selection right here, and it is going to be cornerback Fisher Austin, as you'll see on your screen right now. He is a cornerback out of Texas A&M, very good cover man, and I think that his 81 overall is really kind of an understatement. He has very good coverage ratings, and it's just his tackling is kind of weak and his awareness isn't very good. But other than that, he's a very good cornerback. Now our second round pick remained our own. We were not going to trade it away, and we had not previously traded up, so I was looking at my draft board that I had personally picked out, and I saw a few really good prospects, but I was really looking at one particular guy, Alex Murray, who could turn into a really good linebacker for us, so I decided to actually take the flyer on him and draft him. I believe it was the 44th pick overall, as you'll see in a second. Yes, it was. And we will see his overall here. You should see it on the screen, but my play is a little bit behind, as we did draft this player, right? But eventually we'll draft him, yeah. And he was a 76 overall, so he's not going to start immediately, but if Kean Robinson leaves or Perry Riley leaves in free agency next year, I definitely expect him to step into a starting linebacker role. And the third round pick we acquired from the Bears ended up being the 65th pick, the first pick of the third round. So here we are looking at my draft board again that I had of these players scouted out. One player really stood out to me, and that was Jabari Lattimore, the guard out of Nebraska. And you'll see right here, he really is a draft steal at this point in the draft. He was a very good player, and he's probably going to end up starting for us this upcoming season. Now here is our second third round pick. A funny story happened with this pick, which is I went to look at my draft board and I got the buttons confused. So this next pick is actually not really, it's someone that I liked drafting, that I think that can be a very good player, but he was drafted accidentally. It's wide receiver Rainiel Beasley out of Ohio State. Turned out to be a pretty solid player, but still accidentally drafted right here. I was trying to just look at his draft card, but he does have very good stats right there, and he will probably be a starter next year after Pierre Garçon most likely walks in free agency. Now we move into the fourth round of picks, the 108th pick of the draft, and we are looking at our watch list, and this is going to be the last pick of the draft where we still have people on the watch list. And I'm looking at this guy, Tavares Dent, and I'm looking at his stats, and I'm saying, how can this guy possibly still be available? There's no other pick. We have to draft him, and he turned out to be the 29th best overall player in the draft overall wise. So I thought that was a really good pick, and he's going to end up being a starting D lineman most likely for us this upcoming season. And as I said before, for this next pick, I went and looked at my watch list, and there was no one available that was on our watch list still, and I hadn't had anyone scouted out, so I decided rather than risk it, I would try and restock my stockpile of picks by getting an extra pick from Chicago for next year. I don't have a 5th round pick now because we traded it away in the first round to get Fisher Austin, and we traded away our first 7th round pick. We had 2 7th round picks, and we traded it away for Cleveland's 5th round pick. And now I decided to use my 7th round pick because I went to go look at pick offers, and as you can see, they're not very good, just 6 rounders, and a 7th rounder I believe was also in there. So I said, it was mostly 6 round picks from next year too, so I said, no, you know what, we'll actually take this pick in the 7th round and just use it for something like a kick returner or something. So here you go, we're going to look at the overall board, and I saw this player and looked at the combine grade as well as the 40 time and said, yeah, this guy's worth taking a chance on, and he has a very good kick returner, so he'll be our 2nd kick returner this season. Here's a brief gloss over of our draft. I thought this was a very successful draft. We got 3 starters in Austin, Lattimore, and Dent, and 2 people who will probably be starting next year, most likely, depending on what the draft brings that year, in Alex Murray and Beasley, the wide receiver. So I thought we got 5 starters essentially out of this class. I thought that was a very good job of drafting, as well as a kick returner. So in a way, it's going to be a 6th, although he'll be our 2nd kick returner along with Jamison Crowder. And we still have $10.7 million in cap room following the draft as well. So now here's a clip. We're going to sign 3 free agents. We're going to sign Tavares Jackson to a contract. There was an undrafted free agent from Pittsburgh named Christian Taylor. He may have been drafted, but he was in free agency now. He might have been like released by his team for some reason, whatever reason there was. But he has very good ratings, and so we're going to try and groom him to be our starting center of the future. And here, our final signing is Troy Nicholas, former draft pick from Notre Dame. So that concludes this first offseason of the Redskins franchise. Our first game, I actually don't know who it's against, but we're going to play the first game of the season, and in that episode I'll tell you what the second game is actually going to be, because if you missed it in my update video, we're not going to be playing every game of this franchise. We're only going to be playing select games to give it more of a simulation kind of feel of other type of franchises from other games. So thank you guys for watching this first offseason of the Redskins franchise. I am your host Connor, and I will see you for the first game of the season.